Hi, my name is Alice Bucknell. I'm an artist and writer raised in the United States and currently based in London. I'm participating in this year's B3 Biennale for the Moving Image with my project Easy Crypto Build. Easy Crypto Build is a fictional real estate company that provides elite individuals with premium post-apocalyptic real estate to ride out the end of the world in style. Conceived as a 6-part video, Easy Crypto Build responds to architecture's role in global inequity and the current climate emergency. Using tactics of speculative fiction and working across multiple media, including moving image, sculpture, and environmental design, the project reflects on the language and aesthetics of disaster capitalism and examines the ways in which architecture and real estate are embroiled in these utopian fantasies of a fast-track ticket out of climate change. This is going to be a 3-part talk. The first part explores the political and cultural context that informed the project. The second part looks at the project's use of emerging technologies, including cryptocurrency, artificial intelligence, drones, deepfakes, and the 3D softwares I used to generate the worlds you'll see in the 22-minute-long film. Finally, I'll wrap up the talk with a brief word or two on the importance of speculative fiction as an artistic strategy.
Post-apocalyptic sustainable luxury. Yours through Easy Crypto Build.
Part 1, the backstory. So I first began working on Easy Crypto Build in 2019, before the new conditions of a post-pandemic world were even conceivable. As an artist whose work stretches into disciplines of architecture, design, and technology, I'd been feeling the steady unease of a slow creep towards what I describe as a slow apocalypse. For a few years now, instability has become the new normal. Climate change and ecological destruction were mushrooming in scope, while the rise of an alt-right politics worldwide and a Trump Brexit car crash signaled the coming of a new dark age. It was a total eclipse of the ideas of globalization and the transgressive, even liberating technological innovation that dictated 1990s and early 2000s optimism about the future. It seemed that we were all waiting for an inevitable Hollywood-grade wipeout that was always on the horizon. Despite everything, wealthy business moguls and autocratic politicians were flourishing at the most enviable production party. Architecture was there too, as their ride-or-die associate. From data farms to airports, Wall Street to Silicon Valley, China to the UAE, a defining mechanism of the 21st century might just be how global architectural development, led by the cultural capital of famous architects, fueled economic progress and therefore power. We talk about the Bilbao effect, or the ways that iconic buildings can generate a city's cultural value, but we rarely talk about architects as the inherent agents of that power. Architects and artists, that is. For the last decade, the art world has been a late capitalist merry-go-round of fairs and biennales. It's the same blue-chip galleries showing the same work across multiple continents, the jet set never touching down. As one boom-bust cycle bled into another, currencies crippled at whim, and the global economy seemed ever on the cusp of another recession. In this new normal of mass instability, contemporary art became the perfect spot for venture capitalists and the ultra-rich to park their cash, reaping tax benefits in the process. Art has always been patronized and to an extent controlled by the rich. But the top 10% of the art market has swelled to surreal figures over the past decade, contributing to the largest wealth gap in human history, while shielded by its own self-prescribed liberal values. Seemingly unsatisfied with their fortunes remaining on this planet, the billionaires orbiting the art world are now looking beyond our doomed Earth toward post-apocalyptic survival strategies. During this time, the sales of disaster bunkers skyrocketed, and stock invested in privatized Mars missions kept on growing. For the rest of us, we knew things weren't going to get better unless we acted. Yet the world continued on as if nothing was happening. We were all ghosting on our unsustainable lifestyles, ignoring all the warning signs. So, art and architecture together were perpetuating this zombie-like condition, sprouting luxury apartments and new global galleries in areas that would clearly not survive another 20 years above ocean lines. The Sacklers, the Steve Jobs, and the sheikhs of the world enlist world-famous architects to construct their high-tech warehouses, their office buildings, and their art institutions, which serve as a kind of philosophical Prozac, an embodiment of their pseudo-progressive politics and ideologies that could be shown off to and experienced by the world over. These were sublime buildings that proposed the solution to rising sea levels and vast environmental erasure was one more green roof, one more passively designed curving glass wall, one more Louvre. In their version of reality, a carbon-neutral building could cancel out rampant human rights abuse, the heavy carbon footprints of their jet-setting owners, and the oil and arms deals that lubricate their production. Among the most extreme and patently individualistic architectural innovations within the last decade is the idea of the seastead. Founded in 2008 and backed by Peter Thiel, the billionaire founder of PayPal, the Seasteading Institute sold high net worth investors the neoliberal wet dream of an artificial floating island freed of rules, government, and income tax. Coming with their very own cryptocurrency, these islands were the architectural embodiment of late-stage capitalism, where the richest 1% would become exponentially richer still. These were the utopias where financial gain could sit on par and even override the very real threat of climate change. While New York and London would disappear under rising tides, an autonomous tropical island floating in the Pacific Ocean's no man's land could last forever.
With the COVID-19 pandemic unfolding globally, it's never been a better opportunity to invest in a luxurious life raft for the end of times.
Departing from those conditions, which have become heightened in a new era of global instability caused by a mass health crisis, Easy Crypto Build dissects disaster capitalism and the techno-utopian belief systems that govern tech entrepreneurs from Silicon Valley to Sharjah. Adopting these principles to a kind of reality TV show designed sweepstakes, Easy Crypto Build encourages viewers to vote with their money on their favorite seastead prototype in order to have a chance at winning a spot on this luxury life raft for the end of times. An essential part of this project is Easy Crypto Build's own fallibility. The graphic design of its logo is intentionally cheap. The CGI is glitchy and gaudy looking. The whole enterprise appears to be splitting at the seams, obviously unable to fulfill its own glittering promise of a post-pandemic utopia. In many ways, Easy Crypto Build is an obvious scam, but it's also a warning sign of things to come.
What if the mistakes of yesterday's cities could pave the way for future post-urban growth, deregulated and liberated from failed democratic systems?
In the so-called post-truth era, where illusions of the good life on Instagram trump reality and value and attention, where targeted ads tell you what you want even before you know it yourself, and the next Fire Festival scam is presumably just around the corner, Easy Crypto Build offers up the anatomy of a fantasy heist. It's a shameless hijacking of consumer dopamine, a hallucinogenic vision of an alternative future that's freed from the impending global meltdown we were all heading into anyway. It examines the many ways that architecture and design are imbricated in these fantasies, and why the God complex of the architect never really died with modernism, but has only grown further with the evolution in building technologies. It throws shade on the fetishization of architecture as the embodiment of progress, power, and dreams, and of course, the accelerated apocalypse. This is no longer a speculative future scenario. We're living in it. The 1% has always dreamed of an exit strategy primed for a global scale disaster. The new reality of this pandemic has just given them a reason to act upon it.
Our injuries.
Part 2. We have the technology. Watching my film, you'll notice there are several key new and emerging technologies that inform the marketing grab of Easy Crypto Build. Those are cryptocurrency and the blockchain, drones and simulated reality, artificial intelligence and the question of machine consciousness, and finally, techno-utopian architecture, realized through 3D modeling and video game design softwares, including Blender and Unreal Engine. Before diving into this section, I'd like to begin with an idea that strongly inspired this project. In her 1986 essay, The Carrier Bag Theory of Fiction, the late feminist science fiction author Ursula K. Le Guin argues that technology should be understood as a vessel that carries culture forward, rather than a weapon of domination. This, she suggests, allows science fiction to be used as less a mythological genre than a realistic one. Holding this idea close, Easy Crypto Build is far more interested in the social application and cultural value of technology, as opposed to its literal thingness. The cryptocurrency coins, hallucinogenic and glowing like some alien life form, are an idealized symbol of this futuristic currency, as opposed to an actually functioning one. Similarly, the use of the drone in the second portion of the video is more critical than literal. I refer to this part of the video as the behind-the-scenes component, where viewers get their first definitive taste of the idea that Easy Crypto Build is a scam. In this 5-minute-long scene, the camera switches between a studio shot and a drone's eye view. In the studio shot, a holographic model of Dubai's Burj Khalifa skyscraper is poised atop a perfect white plinth set against a green screen backdrop. A drone flies in and out of camera range, buzzing around the model building. I splice this with found footage of an actual drone diving around the real-life skyscraper. Switching between these two scenes, I fissure them together in a false binary, encouraging the viewer to believe the skyscraper has been photoshopped into reality. This, in turn, insinuates the idea that all of Easy Crypto Build's architectural projects might as well be fakes.
Gaslighting social media influencers, making the architectural models.
As the viewer travels through the 3 worlds engineered by Easy Crypto Build, that is, the palm tree-shaped floating island, the desert oasis populated by the AI ghost of Zaha Hadid, and finally, the donut-shaped floating island startup incubator. Bits and pieces of the architectural design and footage used indicate that the projects themselves are fabricated. In the process of designing these worlds in the digital rendering software Blender, I'm bringing them to life through video footage recorded in the video game software Unreal Engine. it was important for me to root the project in real-world architecture. That is, buildings that either exist physically in the world or are conceptual ideas touted by famous architects. Neutropics, the palm tree-shaped floating island, borrows its modular design from Dutch architect Bjarke Engel's proposed seastead project, Oceanic City. Designed as a hexagonal cluster of islands that can be broken apart and recombined at will, with solar-powered algae gardens beneath the island, powering much of its energy expenditure, Oceanic City was never intended as a real project. Rather, the starchitect Engels used the fictional design for a TED Talk that, perhaps unsurprisingly, went viral. In a recent piece for the Architect's newspaper, the architecture critic Kate Wagner tore apart Oceanic City and several other fantasy projects proposed as easy fixes to the climate crisis, labeling them P-architecture. Borrowing from this and featuring a couple of other new eco-technologies, including Dubai's solar-powered smart palms that are installed around the city and its very own palm tree-shaped artificial island, Palm Jumeirah. My island, Neutropics, fuses the sustainability drive with luxury resort-style living. Casinos, malls, gyms, for-hire speed yachts, and other hedonistic goodies embodying late capitalist wellness culture and mindful living dot the island. The real-life projects inspiring the second world of Easy Crypto Build, a desert utopia, are twofold. Here, I look to the culture of Burning Man, an annual desert rave in Nevada that has gone from being a hippie utopia to Silicon Valley's hottest investor meetup spot within a few short years. For this world, I was also thinking about an IRL architectural project in Sharjah that I was able to visit in person just before lockdown. In 2013, the UAE's Waste Management Corporation, BIA, commissioned the late architect Dame Zaha Hadid to design their futuristic new office space. It ended up being the last project she designed before she died in Miami in 2016. Since Zaha's passing, BIA has evolved the design of the building to incorporate an AI technology that will run the building in the most sustainable and low-energy way possible. For this world and Easy Crypto Build, I basically took the design and premise of BIA's new headquarters as the first building in the Gulf to be powered by AI software, and imagined that the AI in question was actually the resurrected ghost of Dame Zaha. I love the idea of the world-famous Zaha returning to this earth to steward over her final creation. In Easy Crypto Build's tour of this world, which I called Desert X, a nod to the Palm Springs-based bougie art fair that occurs in the Californian desert each year, I ended up creating a deepfake of Zaha by using a beta Canadian software that needs 10 hours of footage of a person in order to generate their deepfake. This was pretty easy to do, as Zaha is so famous that she'd basically blown up the internet with videos and talks on YouTube. In her speech, which is a blend of phrases generated by the AI based on keywords that she used often in her interviews, and my own script writing. The AI ghost of Zaha laments the current state of architecture and the world in crisis. At a time where most architects seem completely incapable of understanding their own complicity in the climate crisis, perhaps it would do them all good to heed the wizened words of an AI ghost. final world, Blue Pod, I took a hard look at Silicon Valley's working culture and how it translates into the architecture and failed seastead initiatives within the region. Specifically, I was looking at Apple's new headquarters in Cupertino, California. A £5 billion high-tech architectural pastoral utopia designed by British firm Foster & Partners. I was also interested in reviving the failed startup Blue Seed, founded in 2011, which was essentially a planned tech incubator stationed in international waters, some 12 miles off the coast of California. The gist was that anyone could work there visa-free, and if your startup took off, you might be able to move into the real Silicon Valley one day and claim US citizenship. For this project in particular, I was interested in the connection between utopian architecture, water, and the notion of freedom, which, of course, here is synonymous with successful business enterprise. The resulting world I created was a fusion of Apple's iconic spaceship-like structure and clusters of Silicon Valley pods, or bunk bed-style living facilities that hopeful techies in Silicon Valley pay upwards of $1,000 a month to live in today. It's the only relatively affordable housing option in the most inflated real estate market in the country.
We provide daily ferry services to Silicon Valley for investor meetings. Once resident startups begin grossing $5 million each year, CEOs will be personally indoctrinated into Silicon Valley with an E-5 visa. They will begin paying taxes, creating jobs, and performing civic goods, doing all the good things that companies in Silicon Valley do. BluePod, your life raft to a better reality. Yours through Easy Crypto Build.
BluePod parodies Silicon Valley's optimism bubble in order to explore the often grueling and inhuman living conditions that prop up its fantasies of the techno-utopian good life. All of these worlds are designed to appeal to different audiences. Nootropics attracts the influencer jet set. Desert X appeals to the paranoid billionaire fearing for their life in the near future proletariat uprising. For the hopeful tech entrepreneur still clinging on to the belief that technology under the mercy of capitalism can save the world, BluePod opens its doors. By rooting these projects partially in reality, while extrapolating upon the ways that architecture feeds into this fetish for techno-utopias, I hope Easy Crypto Build can hold up something of a mirror to society and the stage we are all at, the problems we're facing in the near future, and the delusional love of free enterprise that the West still clings onto as savior, even as the world burns. Which brings me to my next point. Part 3, critical fictioning, or the power of speculative fiction. I'd like to start this third section by returning again to the words of Le Guin, who disagreed so vehemently with the idea that science fiction was in fact fictional at all. Rejecting the popular science fiction of her time, which was, by and large, written by white males who got off on an apocalyptic scenario that emphasized the brutality of technology. Le Guin urges us to rework our understanding of sci-fi as not a predictive, but a descriptive genre. In other words, Le Guin believed that sci-fi could be used to reveal hidden truths about the world as is, not as it will be. Easy Crypto Build works in a similar way, attempting to reveal the systemic inequity and climate crisis that architecture contributes to. These issues have been there all along, but the pandemic has brought them to the surface. exposing them in a way that's no longer possible to ignore. I believe this is the power of speculative fiction as an artistic strategy. By generating semi-fictional scenarios that may as well be real, by adopting the language and aesthetics of late capitalism in order to critique it from the inside, this type of fiction accentuates the power dynamics and dirty work of technology, art, and architecture in perpetuating the very conditions it claims it wants to fix. By using parafiction, or a critical blending of the real with the fictional, artists can lead viewers into an imaginary world that mirrors our own. These worlds are powerful, allowing viewers to arrive at their own realizations of the severity of the situation we all find ourselves in today. These are realizations that might otherwise be ignored if they were mapped one-to-one onto real life as we know it. While in lockdown and developing Easy Crypto Build, I also revisited Mackenzie Wark's 2019 text, "Capital is Dead. Is This Something Worse?" In the book, Wark makes the argument that the information economy has swallowed capitalism whole in order to create a new class of technocratic elites at the helm of big data companies, including Apple, Google, and Amazon. Even before the pandemic, there had been a bottlenecking of power and capital, both online and IRL across media, into the hands of big tech, who were scraping our data and feeding it into algorithms in order to generate new self-fulfilling economies. It's no surprise that while the world economy is set to contract 5.5% this year, 3 times more than it did in the Great Recession, that the stock values of Google, Amazon, and Apple continue to skyrocket, making the billionaire class even richer. These companies offer services with a baked-in damage control against global disaster narratives. They have the capital reserves to take hits that smaller companies, which are effectively being purged en masse during lockdown, cannot weather. With the coronavirus pandemic, big tech has proved the frightening truth of its total immunity to mass disasters. Big tech is not just a particularly resilient cornerstone of our lives, but it is a world-making enterprise that's effectively encoded into the post-pandemic future. Facebook, Amazon, Apple, and Google are set to reign over the post-pandemic world. Now is the time to critically question and resist the complicity of art and architecture in contributing to this inequity. Now is the time to interrogate these power dynamics, the subordination of the working class to the tech despots, and arrive at truths too ugly to refute. Now is the time for a critical awakening through contemporary art. I hope that in some small part, Easy Crypto Build can become a part of this process. And I encourage all other artists working with digital media and the moving image to take stock in the power of speculative fiction for not just critiquing the world in which we currently exist, but to generate and hold space for alternative futures for us to inhabit. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Just kidding. But seriously, thanks for listening. If any of this resonates with you, or if you'd like to talk about this project further, or projects of your own, don't hesitate to get in touch. Thanks again.
Imagine a world where you could live out on the open Pacific, or the endless expanse of the Arabian Desert. A world of political and economic autonomy, of engineered and sustainable beauty. A world with opportunity around every corner. What if the mistakes of yesterday's cities could pave the way for future post-urban growth, deregulated and liberated from failed democratic systems, conceived by leading visionaries in the fields of architecture and design, intelligently engineered with your best self in mind. The wait is over. Introducing Easy Crypto Build.